Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Wellbeing Live, hosted by the Mental Health Center of Denver. Wellbeing Live is a series of virtual talks, workshops, and classes given by our experts at the Mental Health Center of Denver on topics related to well-being, from nutrition to self-care to what to do with your kids this summer, as things are a little bit different, which we'll be hearing about today. My name is Paul. I work in the development office here at the Mental Health Center of Denver. And we are very excited to be joined today by Cindy Gonzalez, who is a school-based therapist. And she'll be talking to us about what do we do with our kids this summer when things are a little bit different because of COVID and everything else that we're working through. Just a reminder that if you have questions, please post them in the Q&A chat, which is accessible in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And we'll do a little Q&A at the end. And so with that, I'll invite Cindy to begin her presentation.
So my name is Cindy Gonzalez. As Paul said, I am a school-based therapist at the Mental Health Center of Denver. What we wanted to do today was have a presentation and a conversation about this summer. This year is very different, and we're going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and the impact on our well-being and our families. We'll talk a little bit about some tools and coping skills that you could add to your family toolbox, and we'll also talk a lot about pretty much what you came here for. What can we do with our kids this summer? So we'll get started with our first slide. And the first slide, it's going to be all about just in general. So because of COVID, we are seeing this year a lot of changes. These changes are not just school switching over to being at home, people working from home. It is with everything. It has changed the way we have to grocery shop, the way we go to the bank, and even the way we get therapy and go see our doctor, and things that we didn't have to think about in before. Because we are seeing all these changes, we're learning as humans how to adjust and how to cope with this is our world right now. And just with adjusting and coping, this is bringing on a lot of different emotions, whether it's for us as adults or for our little ones, whether we have little ones in first grade all the way to teenagers who are about to graduate high school. I'm sure they're experiencing things like fear of the unknown, like what is it going to look like in the next 3 months or even 6 months? What they might be worrying about, like what will be happening in the future. They might be feeling disappointment. Maybe some of your kids were really looking forward to field day or to graduation or to homecoming, and those things just didn't happen, right? In our next slide, you'll see that because of these changes, because we've had to adjust and cope with a lot of these things, it has a huge effect on our community. We've had to adjust so much. It is changing the way we understand our world. The way we used to think our world worked, the way we used to think work and school is completely different now. And it's challenging for a lot of us, and it's creating a huge effect in our community. But in our next slide, you'll see the thing about this is that it's such a collective experience. You'll see that as a result of this collective experience, we are all experiencing a loss, whether that's a loss of like a death of a loved one or an illness because of COVID-19, or because of the system changes that I talked about in our first slide. We're seeing changes. We might have a loss of employment, a loss of school. A lot of kids that I talked to, especially the last week of school, were feeling a lot of sadness that they didn't get to say bye. They didn't get to say bye the same way they would in the past years. They didn't get their last week of school events that they usually did. We might be feeling a loss of the economic system that we used to understand, and just a general loss of control of where is our world going. This loss in our next slide, you'll see, is labeled as grief. The thing about grief is it's a response to a loss that can include emotional, physical, behavioral, or social responses. I know a lot of the times when we talk about loss and when we talk about grief, we talk about it losing someone close to us or important to us. The thing is, humans, we don't just attach ourselves to other humans. We attach ourselves to our identities, our jobs, our experiences. They're a huge part of who we are. And when we lose those things, we do have this emotional, physical, behavioral, and social response to it. Another big thing that I think it's unique to our situation this year is this anticipatory grief. Before it even happens, we all are already kind of grieving that loss. For example, for me, we were planning on like visiting family in a different state, and then we had to, before it even happened, I was already grieving that loss of like, that's not happening. I'm not seeing that family. And that's something different for us. And in the next slide, you'll see something important about grief is that grief is natural. It happens when humans experience loss, and that's what makes us so resilient. That's what makes us so resilient to challenges throughout our life. This is not the first challenge that we've experienced collectively as a society, and it goes to show that we can get through anything. The thing about grief is that it's going to make us reflect and think a lot about this change and how we are going to go through and find a new way of describing and understanding our world. And the second part, I think probably the most important part with this is the reason we're so resilient is that it helps us when we name and claim this grief. What's really important is being able to, you'll notice that whenever we go through a challenge in society, as soon as we name it, as soon as we have a name for what's going on, what we're all experiencing, we're able to kind of start the action plan with it. In the next slide, it talks a little bit about that action plan and some things that you can kind of think about or do with your kids. The first one you'll see is be a role model. So our kids do look at us a lot of the time for how to respond in certain situations. So if we're a role model in how we explain, not only like this is what social distancing looks like, but if they see us also do the same thing, demonstrating how to deep breathe and other coping skills. So that one's probably going to be really important right now because how I said in the first slide, because of COVID, because of all these changes, because we're all having to adjust, not just adults are experiencing feelings of anxiety and worry and sadness and loss, but our kids are also having to deal with all of that. Not only are adults seeing this increase of like, I have to use more coping skills or I'm forgetting how to use my coping skills, so are our kids. So go ahead and just remind them, let them know like, hey, like I'm noticing that you are getting a little frustrated right now. Maybe we can practice some deep breathing. And you'll see a picture on the right, some great ways to teach the little ones, like the very, very little ones who don't. If you tell a first grader to take a deep breath, they'll probably go like that. That's not a deep breath. If you really want them to take a deep breath to help them calm down, a great thing to do is tell them to smell the flower and blow this, the pinwheel. You can even go to Dollar Tree and buy both of these things and make them with your kids. It's a really great way to like, I need to smell the flower, I need to blow the pinwheel. And it helps that. And practicing with that and being a role model with that. The next part is structure. One thing that is really important right now, I know school's over, but keeping a schedule and a structure and a routine is going to be really important. Of like, at this time we wake up, at this time we have breakfast, we have our snack, we have playtime, we have chore time. And then also make sure as a parent include parent time. Like this is my time for myself. Like I'm going to watch my show, I'm going to read my book, I'm going to talk to my sister, I'm going to talk to my best friend, whatever it is that as an adult that you like to do for yourself, include that in the structure. The last piece with this is the news and just being aware on how we talk about COVID. News, sometimes hearing it all the time as an adult makes me sometimes stress. So it's very important to kind of watch the news to get the information that we need because it's helpful. It lets us know about important information. And then after that, kind of shutting it off or taking a break from it, including with our social media. And then when you talk to your kids, because your kids, as much as adults want to understand what's going on and what we need to do, our kids also have those questions. Explain the news, but in a way that it can be appropriate for them, in a way that it lets them know like, hey, the news right now is saying we need to social distance. What that means is 6 feet, and this is what it looks like, and leaving it like that. In the next slide are some good what to think about for families and parents. So again, kids will always look at you for how to respond, especially in stressful situations. Always help them on how to calm down when they're feeling overwhelmed, how to put in those coping mechanism or skills, how to set time for yourself. So if they're looking at you and like you're letting them know, like, right now is my mom time, my dad time, or my me time, and for these next 30 minutes or 45 minutes or however long it is, it's my time and no one needs to interrupt that, then they'll learn that, like, they also need to take their own time. They need to have their own time to do the things they like, whether it's drawing, coloring, doing Legos, just outside running on the bike, whatever it is, that's their time and you have your own time. And again, practice it over and over again. Just like with math, we don't get the math problem right the first time. We keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And even then when we practice, we'll make a mistake. It'll happen. Which brings me to the last and most important piece is remember to be flexible and just adjust. This is not a normal time for anybody. I'm sure a lot of families had the rules of like no screen time until Friday, or only 1 hour of screen time. I'm sure a lot of the rules had to be more flexible, or they've had to adjust a little bit more to that, because before we had 8 hours at school, 8 hours at work, and then we came home and had dinner and spent time together, right? Now we're 24/7 at our house. This is where we're at all the time, pretty much. So it's okay if you're flexible. It's okay if you create your schedule for the summer and one day it doesn't go that way. It's okay if one day you decide we're just going to throw it out the window and we're just going to do something different today. Go ahead and do that. That's what's most important for you guys during this time. Which brings me to the topic that you're here about in our next slide, which is summer during a pandemic, or just summer this year. Usually when we think of summer, we think of all those pictures. We think of relaxation, we think of fun, we think of family, we think of like barbecues, we think of all these things. That's what we think about, right? This year, we are all wondering as families, what am I going to do with my kids? I had a lot of kids who usually do things like summer camp or like STEM camp or like different things like that over the summer, or they'll go and go to the Nature and Science Museum, or they go to the zoo. I've even had families talk about like, I don't know how to tell my kid why they can't go to the zoo. That's hard, right? We always look forward to this summer. So what I want to talk about is how can we still have that relaxing, that fun summer that we're used to during this time. In the next slide, you'll see kind of, I touched a little bit about wellness during summer 2020. And the reason I touched on it is because all these things will kind of mesh in the fun that we want to have over the summer. So for example, the next slide will have a little bit of some examples and I'll talk a little bit about them. As a person that works with kids all the time, in the next slide, you'll see a bunch of different just pictures with different things that you can use. It gets pretty expensive to keep your kids preoccupied, like having to buy them new Legos all the time. Legos are expensive. Having to buy them cars or whatever it is to keep them occupied at home will get pretty pricey. So the thing that I always like to recommend my parents is going to Dollar Tree. They have chalk there. They have bubbles there. Bubbles are a great way to teach them how to deep breathe. And if you buy bubbles from Dollar Tree, they have to take deeper breaths to blow the bubbles out. So I highly recommend bubbles from Dollar Tree. They have a great craft section there. Like things that you would find at Hobby Lobby or at Michael's are at Dollar Tree for $1. So those are great places to kind of go. And during the summer, it's going to be great to kind of find the hobbies that your kids like, whether it's music, cooking, cleaning, drawing, things like that. Help them find those things, and kind of like the way we have like Taco Tuesday, have things like that for your kids. So every Wednesday we have wacky, crazy hair day Wednesday, and that's what like your kids are doing that day. Or we have let's see, water balloon fight Wednesday, or whatever it is, right? You create those things for your kids so they have things to look forward to, so they don't feel like the biggest emotion that I hear from a kid right now is I'm bored. I'm feeling bored. And I understand that, like, they're at home, they have nothing to do. In the next slide, you'll see why I'd included the well-being piece. So I think a lot of things if you have little ones, or actually even teenagers, teenagers will say a lot of the times, I don't want to talk about my emotions. But if you bring about it in a way that is interesting to them, they'll talk about their emotions. Same with little ones. So because, again, all these changes are bringing about a lot of responses, including emotional responses, it's going to be really good to do activities that are going to help process those emotions, or just even have a way to talk to them about it. So I have some examples on how to do that. I use a lot of things like Legos. Legos can be expensive, so I buy like the cheap ones that are at Dollar Tree. Like, they're literally packs of like little Legos that you can use, and they work great because they're all different colors. Using colors to help with your kids and emotions are really great, and then it also helps create an art project. You can do any type of art project with emotions and colors. Help them label, like, blue means sad or green means relaxed, whatever it is for them. You can also use movies like Inside Out. Inside Out will explain emotions very simply for kids, and then there's a ton of activities that you can do with that. And then books. Kids love books, especially little ones. So there's a book called The Color Monster. There's one called The Way I Feel, and there's another one called Listening to My Body, and much more. So different ways that you can kind of do creative things with them that is also kind of helping that emotional piece that I'm sure they're all looking for, will be great. And then our last slide is going to be a bunch of links with things that you can do at home right now, especially over the summer. So the first one is this person who just reads books out loud, and the way this person reads them is really great for kids. I know sometimes, like, I'm sure a lot of parents are having to work from home. They can't take a break every 30 minutes to read them a story. This is a great way to kind of do that. Like, I'll read you one at 5 when I'm done, but right now you can hear this story on the computer. The second is like a book on how to fight COVID that somebody created. It's a kid's book. It's a children's book. It is a PDF, so you can click on the link and it'll give you can print it out, or you can just have it on the computer for them, and it has pictures and it's great. The next 3 links are different activities that you can do with your kids at home. The last one's really fun because it's like jumbo things that you can do with your kids. I think like one of the examples is buying paper plates and like a card deck, and then you have like a giant memory game that you can do outside, and things like that. And the 3 links that I picked out, I made sure that they're activities that you can either do with things that you already have at home, like chalk or paper plates or balloons or whatever it is, or things that you can easily buy like at Dollar Tree for $1. And then the last couple of links are things that will add a lot of movement. So sometimes I'll get questions like, how do I get my kid outside? My kid doesn't want to go outside. They just want to be on like the iPad, or they just want to play video games, or they've already gone outside, but they need to move around. And you can tell when your kid wants to move around because they're like jumping, they're moving side to side. They want you to look at them. These 3 YouTube channels. So these are channels. Go Noodles Games. They do like different different songs that are very dancey and fun for kids, and they'll do quote unquote like dance parties, which are great for little ones. And then there's Cosmic Yoga. It's the way she explains yoga is so kid friendly and so great. And then the last one is one in Spanish. So it'll have the same things as the previous 2, just in Spanish. And all of these links, we'll be adding them along with our slides on our website by the end of Friday. So you guys can go ahead and click on it, see all of those things, and get to look at them. And that is the end of our slides. We'll go ahead and move to the Q&A portion of this presentation.
Thank you very much, Cindy. That was really informative. I know I learned a lot. I don't personally have kids, but I think a lot of these things I'm going to try for myself. So going into the Q&A, we have several questions. The first few relate to teenagers. So we'll start with, what are some creative ways to help teens talk about their emotions? I struggle getting more than 1-word answers from my teenager.
That is a great question. The same way little ones want to express themselves is the same way teens do, except teens kind of make it hard for us. We always think our teens don't want to spend time with us, or they don't want to talk to us, or things like that. Use things like music, use things like humor. Those are the best way to kind of get them to talk. Some activity that I'll tend to do is, what is a song right now that really speaks to you? What is a song right now that you're really, that relates to you right now? And then I'll have them, all right, what's the lyric that is really calling to you right now? We'll look up the lyrics together. And sometimes it'll start a conversation, or do things like a collage of like, what do you want your summer to look like? And right there and there, you'll already have a conversation of like, what I wanted my summer to look like was this, but this is what it might look like because of all of this. Use art and expressive ways to do it. If you ask them just straight up, what are you feeling? What's going on for you? They'll probably say nothing, and they'll like not really look at you. Try to go around about it with art and expressive things, and humor. Definitely a lot of humor. I hope that answered that question.
That's great. For the next question, I'm actually going to combine two of them, also related to teenagers. So how do you talk to teenagers about social distancing? And while they're social distancing, how can teenagers keep connected with their friends?
I think that's probably the hardest thing for teenagers right now. Teenagers are social. That's what they want. That's the way they're like learning about the world. That's the way they're navigating the world, is socializing. And right now, I'm sure it's difficult for them to understand why we have to do social distancing. A great way, and I have a link actually, so I'll send it over to add it to the rest of the resource links that we have on how to describe what social distancing is to our teenagers. And that's a great way. It explains it really well. And then really having an honest conversation about what it is about them wanting to connect with their friends. We have to acknowledge, like, even as adults, we are having a hard time not seeing our friends, not going to concerts, not going to events. If we're having a hard time and we're feeling sad about it, I'm sure our kids are also feeling that way. And just acknowledging that, letting them know, like, I see that you're feeling sad, that you can't see your friends as often, or you can't do the things that you wanted to do. And then working with them about figuring out a plan of what fits right for them. Include them in that planning. Don't just say, well, this is what it's going to look like. Include them in the planning of, okay, we know this is what social distance looks like. We just explained it. This is what it looks like. Now, what can we do? Because I can see you're sad that you can't see your friends. I want you to see your friends and feel connected. What can we do to do that while still maintaining social distancing? So that's a great way to do it. Plan it with them. They'll bring their own ideas of like, well, maybe I can video chat that once a week, or maybe I can do this. Or they're probably already thinking about like, well, my friends are planning this thing over video. Can I do that every week? They'll probably already thinking about that. And if not, come with your own ideas. And if you see they're noticing they can't think of ideas, let them know like, well, I have some ideas. Do you want to hear them out? And that will open up the conversation to navigating social distancing for teens who just want to socialize, right?
That's great. And now moving on to the little ones, what are some ways that I can motivate my kids to go outside in a safe way?
A great way, so it depends on your kid too, though, because a lot of kids like to do a lot of hands-on things, and that's when I'll tell you incorporate things like chalk, or just don't tell them go outside and play. Give them like some props with them. Give them like buy them like foam swords, or buy like little things that you can buy from Dollar Tree that are like things that can go outside, and that's what they can do out there. Help them think of games together. The list of the jumbo games are probably games that they probably do inside that they're tired and bored of, that they'll probably find exciting outside because it's bigger and they're out and moving. Another way to motivate them is incentivizing them. So like if you've noticed that they just want to spend a lot of time either playing video games or watching TV or drawing or reading. Like, again, it depends on your kid. You know your kid the best. So whatever you notice is that they're really just trying to spend their time on. For myself, like, we like to overindulge on the things that we want and underindulge on the things that we need, like spending time outside. Use that. Be like, okay, you can use this many hours of TV time, but you can't have more unless you spend this much time outside. Whatever works for you and your family, again, incorporate them in that planning, but try to figure it out what's going to be best for you, what's going to work the best. Use that incentivize them in that way. And then remember that big piece of being flexible and adjusting to our kids, because it's hard. Even as adults, it's hard to figure out a schedule and stick by it and do all those things we need to do to take care of ourselves.
Great. And our last question for the day is, how do I make the news age appropriate for my kids?
That's a good question, because it's hard, right? How do I describe what I just heard on the news and make it appropriate for my first grader or my teenager? The best answer that I can give you is give them just the facts of, like, this is what I saw, and keep it very simple and keep it short. Don't use big words like pandemic. Don't use like words like that, but try to find different ways of using it. And when I say age appropriate, it also comes with just the facts and then nothing. Don't bring in your own responses about the news, or the responses or like the opinions of other people on the news. Because when I talked about being exposed to news a lot will bring anxiety and worry to us as adults. We start to stress. We start to think about, like, well, if they're saying this means this is going to happen and this is going to happen. I know it's been a long time since all of us have been kids, but kids' brains work just like that as well. So what you want to do is give them the facts so they don't have that, like, what if going all the time, and then just keeping it that way. Don't bring in things like, well, they're telling us to social distance. How is that going to work? That's never going to work. Even though that's an adult conversation to have with your partner, with your friends, things like that. If you want to have it with your kid, that's when you talk about, like, this is what social distancing looks like, and this is how we can do it together. So 2 separate conversations, and that's how you can keep it age appropriate.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Cindy, for talking to us about what to do with your kids and our families this summer, as things are a little bit different. Really appreciated hearing from you and your expertise in your school-based practice. And thank you to everyone for joining us today for this latest edition of Wellbeing Live. Just a reminder to click the link in the Q&A section for the resources that Cindy shared with us and the slides, and to see a list of upcoming events. So everyone, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.